Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this morning's post-cabinet press briefing. My name is Leslie Ann Johnson. It's good to have you as usual, whether you're joining us on Channel 22 or Facebook page or you are in the diaspora. We are happy to have you. This morning we have with us the Honorable Senator Norland Cox, Minister for Culture, talking about a number of things this morning. The cancellation of Carnival this year, as we know, today should have been Carnival Tuesday, but we know that as government said, we have to do what is in the best interest of the country to protect life and health. So here we are today, being productive as we can possibly be. Then, of course, he'll also give us a reminder that we're still in the pandemic, so we need to be as cautious as possible in everything that we do and follow the protocols. He'll also speak about the Simone Cultural Center and also touch on student athletes who are away who might have been affected in some way by the pandemic, just letting us know that they are in contact with these people as well. So without any further ado, I will hand you over to the Honorable Senator Norland Cox. Good morning.
Morning, Liziana. A pleasure to be here. Let me take this opportunity to say a pleasant morning to viewers, listeners of our post-cabinet briefing this morning on GIS. I think the last time I was here, we had all of our reporters here in person. And so it goes to show how much has changed since the last I've been on post-cabinet. But it's a pleasure to be here this morning. And I think first and foremost, I think what is at the forefront of government's agenda right now is the global pandemic, COVID-19. We remain steadfast in our utterances and continue to urge the general public to adhere to the protocols, to keep themselves safe, to keep their families safe. And we recognize that it's a difficult time for everybody. Each and every one of us are affected. We are called upon to change how we do things in a normal sense and to find new and innovative ways of coping with this pandemic to keep each and every one of us safe here in Grenada. One of the things that we observed that a number of support that we have received from various sectors that have helped us to navigate this pandemic and to bring us to where we are today. Where we want to make a special mention of the religious community, the churches. They have done exceedingly well in terms of adhering to those protocols, and for good reason. That a large percentage of their population is vulnerable persons within our communities, and as such they have remained vigilant, and as government we really want to commend them in this regard, and we think this is important in terms of setting an example for others to follow. Now, because of this pandemic, it has led to the cancellation, of course, of Spice Mass 2020, and in doing so it meant that we just couldn't do things as normal. We tried in every way, looked at every possible initiative. I think we hold out last when looking at all the other neighboring islands, Caribbean countries, who also have similar carnivals like us. Similar carnivals like us.
Senator, just give me 1 second, please. Colleagues, for those of you on Zoom, can you please mute your mics? You're coming over and distracting the proceedings. Thank you.
You're welcome. They too had cancelled, and we were basically holding out, trying to see how the recovery process going in terms of managing the pandemic before we decide to cancel ourselves. And so we came to the final realization that we had to cancel Carnival in the true sense that it's worth. One of the things that we would have done and also continue to do was to call on persons not to gather in the streets, not to come out because of obvious reasons. The threat that it places in terms of persons gathering in large numbers. No, one of the challenges that we have, and the reason why we are so concerned as government and as a ministry, is that we do not know everything about this virus. We do not know what is going to happen. We are hoping that we can have Carnival next year. Carriacou Carnival is early next year. The National Carnival is later in August. We are hoping that we can have those, that we can return to normal. We do not know. But what we do know is that For us to get there and to get there quickly and safely, we need to follow these protocols. And hence the reason why we're really calling on each and every one of us to work with us. Today should have been our Carnival Tuesday. However, because of this pandemic, we took that decision out of concern for the nation, concern for our citizens, concern for everyone. And we just want to take the opportunity to commend persons who were able to restrain themselves from going out on the street. We want to commend all those persons who acceded to our call not to parade the streets. That we believe is very important, and we want to recognize that. We do have observed that a number of pockets of celebratory activities have been taking place in varying spots around the island. And at this point in time, I must commend the police for being there, for observing, and also just ensuring that persons do not create any other problems than just operating in this celebratory manner. Now, we honestly and truly do not recommend these large gatherings, and we ask persons, of course, not to engage in such. But as people, as human beings, some persons can restrain themselves while others cannot, and as such we understand. But we are very, very concerned. We know that a lot of the persons making up these gatherings are very young persons who apparently are not in school because school is off. But the threat that is likely if there is some spread, which we do not know, because we just don't know, and we are erring on the side of caution. That is what we are trying to do. Younger persons can take it home to the elder folks, and so we are very concerned about that. And so that is what we understand. So we are very understanding in this context, but we are very concerned. We know that the psyche of persons are somewhat challenged now, persons who really love the carnival celebrations, who in some way are affected by the COVID-19 and what it has done from a global standpoint. But we are asking for your continued cooperation at this time so that we can keep each and every one of us safe in Grenada. I want to also take this opportunity now to speak a little bit on the Seamoon Cultural Center. Government, in its observations and how we have been trying to restructure, looking at ways of moving forward in terms of keeping the economy going, with the impact of COVID-19, we recognize that the construction industry, the infrastructure development sector, is a sector that will play a critical role in terms of keeping our economy alive and moving forward. As such, government is desirous of ensuring that a number of our infrastructure works are implemented successfully and speedily during this period. And one such project is the Seamoon Cultural Center. And for the people of Seamoon and St. Andrews Paradise area, this project is a very important project to that community. As such, government remains steadfast and committed to delivering that facility for people within that area, and of course the state as a whole. And so we started this process. A number of activities have already been completed, and just to note them, we would have already demolished the old Seamoon site. We would have done a cadastral survey of the area. We also did a geotechnical study of the area. The site was securely fenced. Also, we had the concept designs for what the center would look like developed. After that concept design was developed, we had consultation with the community, present the concept to them, take questions, take their feedback, and to integrate those within the design. And currently, the drawings are being done with the view of them having been getting ready for completion, to have them presented at the end of this month. So we are hoping, desirous of having the drawings for the Cement Control Center completed by the end of this month, and it will go out for tender thereafter, and construction soon to follow. So I just want to ask the people of Seamoon and St. Andrews to continue to work with us as we seek to implement this very important project. I know that a number of persons are looking forward to having the center back in Seamoon, where a number of our cultural activities can continue to go on display, not only for the area but also for the entire world. Ministry of Sports, we have also been impacted significantly by the COVID-19 pandemic, but we want to, at this point in time, just to speak specifically to our athletes or student athletes who are overseas, and they are also facing those challenges out there. We have been in constant contact with them, and I really want to take this opportunity to recognize their efforts for being able to cope with the challenges that they are experiencing. And so through the ministry, of course, and the government, we are providing some support to keep them at school, keep them functioning. For those who have to come home, we are working to see how we can get them home as well, and also to ensure that those who have to re-enroll back for the next semester, to work with them to ensure that everything is in order. Added to that, there are still athletes here, student athletes here, who are desirous of seeking and going forward to get scholarship and opportunities outside. So that is also happening as well. So while some of our athletes are out there, we have student athletes here who are getting ready to go out there to get a tertiary education and also to develop their athletic ability. So we want to commend them in this regard, and we at the Ministry of Sports are proud what they are doing in lifting Grenada name and lifting the recognition of their family as well, and the efforts that they are doing. So we want to thank them for that. So these are the main areas of that we wanted to bring to the attention of the public this morning, and we now open for questions in this regard as to Ministry of Culture, Youth, Sports, Culture and the Arts. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Cox. Colleagues, as Senator Cox mentioned, the floor is now open for questions. Good morning, Rena Pierre. Rena,
Morning, Leslie.
Go right ahead.
Morning, Senator Cox. I have a couple questions for you. I would first like to start off with the carnival-like activity. Could you speak as it relates to persons are asking now, why were persons involved in the carnival-like activities over the past few days not arrested or maybe dealt with as it relates to the activities?
I am not quite clear in terms of what activities that you're speaking about. What I do know is that a number of activities have been taking place over the past couple of months or so, virtual and otherwise. But I'm not sure if you can tell me specifically what activity that you're speaking to, and then I can probably...
Well, I'm speaking about, because persons, what is the understanding is that persons who are actually about these activities are doing something illegal, right? No. Could you clarify, is it illegal to play Juve even if it was stated that Carnival is out? Or, because that is a question that has been asked.
Thank you very much for clarifying that. And it's a very important question. One of the things that we have observed that the Spice Mass Act, the legislation, there is a gap. The act does not speak anything towards cancellation, and so there is a void. There is nothing there. So if Carnival would cancel, even Spice Mass in itself is somewhat limited in doing anything. Even the police is limited in doing anything per se, in terms of saying that if Carnival is cancelled, what should not happen, what should happen, and things like that. So that is one of the issues that is before us. However, as regards to stuff that is as against the regulations, is lends itself towards not wearing masks and things like that. Those are some of the issues that is before us, and so it's because of those limitations. I believe that the police would not want to be arresting people just for not wearing a mask, because there are a number of persons are in violation with that. Even on a normal day, you go around, you find out persons who are in public domain and not wearing a mask. And so the reasons why we are restrained in doing that is because we're in a pandemic. It's a new normal. This is not something that we are accustomed to, having to not be close to family and friends in close contact and talking and shaking hands. And so we understand that it will take some time for a person to get acclimatized with that. So I think it's within that context that the police is using that discretion not to exercise that right that they have to arrest based on the law. So that is what I from my understanding.
Minister, from my understanding, I know that having a mask or wearing a mask is very important due to COVID-19, and it was said by members of the government and by the Royal Grenadian Police Force that persons can be charged if they do not wear a mask. Now, understanding the seriousness of COVID-19 and the aspect of our carnival activities, and let's say the group of people that has been around, not some doing social distancing, some not. We're saying here that we're COVID-19 free, but also that we have persons coming into the island and stuff like that. Is it a situation where we need to implement a little bit more stiff as it relates to these actions of charging and dealing with these cases in order to ensure that we do, because isn't it a situation where we're being a bit, let's say, free-spirited?
I truly understand your concern, and we have that concern as well, and I take your point in that regard. But we believe that the process, we believe that the process of getting persons to comply through education, through persuasion, is one that we should first employ before we go to the more rigid one in terms of just at arresting persons, and the practicality of it. If 100 persons just decide that they're not wearing masks, can we arrest 500 persons, 200 persons, 300 persons? So I think those are the discussions and scenarios that are before us. But we believe that we believe in our people, and we believe in Grenadians and Caracoans and Petit Dominicans, because they have, for a number of times throughout this process, between March and now, worked with us to get us to this point. And so I believe that once we continue to work with them and persons continue to understand the challenges that is before us, they will comply. And so it's within that regard that we believe that we're starting with that persuasion and having the discussion and education.
Any other question, Rena, before we move on to somebody else?
I have two more, but you can go ahead with someone else.
Okay, great. Linda Straker, good morning.
Good morning to you and to the
Go ahead, we're hearing you. Go ahead.
and everyone listening. I said I have a number of questions, but as we know, I'll probably ask two or three and then move on. My first question is to the minister. It's also...
Are you there, Linda? Okay, there seems to be a little problem with Linda's connection. So
again, related to the cancellation. Hello?
Linda, start over your question, please, because you broke up there a bit.
Okay, my question also has to do with the cancellation of Carnival, and probably a little bit of clarification. A few weeks ago, we was all given a notification that Spice Match virtual event were cancelled. I personally contacted the minister to get a clarification as to why that virtual event, which was literally acting as a promotion for 2021, was cancelled. I will appreciate if the minister can give us a reason why SMC virtual event was cancelled, but another major event was allowed to occur. That's my first question.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much. Oh, that's a very important question, and I did recall that you did reach out to us in that regard. By the time that persons reached out to us, we were having discussions with our sponsors, and we wanted to afford them the opportunity for that explanation in terms of cancellation before we go to public in that regard. Now, when we started and took the decision to have a number of virtual events for Spice Mass as a replacement for not having Carnival, we started out with a particular intention to really and truly to bring a Carnival experience with the absence of the normal Carnival. And however, and that is where we started, and that was the intention. While we were having those events, we were receiving a number of complaints, a number of feedback, some positive, some negative. And one of it had to do with those events because of the name Spice Mass being mentioned every time on the ad. It was in effect as if Carnival was still happening, and as such it posed a challenge for us as Spice Mass and government. And what should we do? We understand the intention, but the feedback and what it was creating on the ground was one that was posing a challenge for us and the Spice Mass brand. Then thereafter came the cancellation. Thereafter came the removal of the holidays, and so it presents itself as a contrast, contrary to what government policy was, and so it really put us in a difficult position. So we took the decision to cancel those events. It was a difficult decision. We didn't want to, a number of persons who were invested in the events, some of them were not happy. But we did receive some positive feedback by a number of persons who were happy that persons who were concerned that there were a number of events, a number of weekends, every weekend persons were having these celebratory activities, and it was led to believe that what we were doing was causing that. So we found ourselves in that difficult position to take that difficult decision. However, we thought that not having no events at all, and it's not just speaking to the event that took place, the virtual event that took place on Friday. We had virtual events as way back as May, from Mother's Day. We had virtual events taking place. We even had a virtual event on Saturday, for that matter. So it is not just that particular event on Friday, but there are a number of virtual events were taking place throughout. Some of the artists even had their own virtual events as well. And so we didn't want to close everything down. And I think persons would understand that if we shut everything down, all private events, nothing, what that would lend itself to towards. And so for that reason, we decided as Spice Mass, as government, we are going to pull back and just allow the private events to take place. So it's within that context we do that. And I say this to say that after the virtual event on Friday, Spice Mass had a scheduled event on Sunday. I'm not certain that event on Sunday would have survived to happen at all, based on the number of feedback from certain circles, what some of the things that were portrayed or what was seen from the event on Friday. So is within that context we thought it important to scale back some of those activities and just allow the private person to go out and apply the activities.
You have another, Linda?
Yeah, I have a follow-up. The minister last week announced in the parliament that he was is part of the COVID response committee. can you tell us if that committee is still existing? Because when Prime Minister last addressed the nation, he indicated that it would become an advisory body. So can you tell us whether or not the committee is still existing? And the COVID response fund, what is the status of that fund and how much government has been able to get donated to that fund?
Okay. Thank you very much. As regards to the initial COVID-19 task force, that terms of reference for that committee came to an end at the end of July, 31st of July. As such, that new advisory committee have been established and that is operational, and that would have taken the place of that committee. As regards to the account, the COVID-19 account, the last time, I cannot tell you what it is currently, but the last time, the last figure that I had from it, it had in excess of 30,000 EC dollars. But much as to say that a lot of our support, majority of our support for COVID-19 didn't come via cash, but it came via supplies and materials, in of course, in the millions. Thank you.
That's it from you, Linda?
For the advisory body, can you tell us who is now heading or chairing that committee? And if that committee is also, when the task force was operational, we would have gotten a regular updates. Now we get no updates as to whether how much persons has been tested and so forth. If that advisory body is operational, tell us who is the chair and why is it that we are not getting updates?
Thank you very much. That's a very important question. Now, the advisory body is made up, comprises of different sectors. So you have somebody handling the health aspect, of course, somebody handling the tourism, and there's somebody who is handling the procurement aspect of it. And so the Ministry of Health, for obvious reasons, will be the one spearheading the health aspect of that advisory committee, and the tourism will be handling, the Ministry of Tourism will be handling that aspect. So there is no, they all would have to provide a report to the respective ministers of those ministries, and who in turn will report to the Prime Minister. So in a sense you can say that the Prime Minister is the final person who will oversee the operations of those subcommittees. But the Minister for those respective committees will be heading. So for the tourism, the CEO of the GTA is the person heading that sector, and for the health, Dr. Bud Brafitt is heading that sector. I'm responsible for the procurement aspect, overseeing the procurement for that committee. So as regards to updates, the Ministry of Health will be the competent authority who will be issuing updates, and I guess as much the reason why we don't have that update in terms of testing is because there may not be any activity in terms of persons who coming in now via flight. The only how you will hear is if somebody is positive, then they will give a report on that. But if not, they would not give any reports in that regard. But if persons are desirous of knowing how much persons that came in and how much persons tests are done, that can be done. That can be given. So that is not an issue also. But everybody who comes in will receive tests at the airport and then follow up PCR tests even before they leave quarantine. So that is the protocol in that regard.
That's it for you, Linda?
Yes, you can move along to another person. I'll take on the next one.
Okay, great. All right. I know Rena has some other questions, but colleagues, anybody else has questions before we go back to Rena or Linda? Callistra, good morning. Callistra, are you there? Are you hearing us?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. Hearing me, Les?
Yes, I am. Go right ahead.
Okay. I have two questions. One, given the feedback from people seem to be saying that one of the reasons why the agents were so defiant over the last 2 weeks and went ahead with cultural activities on the streets is because of what they saw at the stadium in the virtual event. Have you looked at the impact of having such an event which had an elitist appearance based on what people see, and the impact that it would have had on the public? Do you have any regret at this moment of having this activity when you're asking the entire country to restrain themselves and not to participate in something that they have been doing for decades upon decades? Do you feel a sense of regret by allowing that apparently elitist event to go ahead? My first question. And my second question, Minister, I'm sorry, I did not say good morning, Minister. My second question is related to the museum. Can you give me a status update on what's going on with the museum board? I know there was a bit of a power struggle there. What is happening there, as well as the tenants who are there? What's going on with them?
Thank you very much for your question, Kalistra. Okay, first of all, yes, the event. The event, as with all the other events, were meant as an opportunity for our artists to express themselves culturally, to continue to promote Grenada's Carnival, and also what we have here in terms of culture. Now, the show was given permission to proceed. It wasn't, while the COVID committee was active, the request came to the COVID committee, and as all the other virtual events, permission was granted. However, permission on the police side has to do with amplified music, and so the COVID committee, that is not the purview of the COVID committee. However, the show was allowed to go on, and the perception that it was an elitist or for the elites, it is. I believe it's an incorrect analysis. What we did, permission was given for 30 persons to be in the stands, and the reason why the permission was given, there is a stand of 2,000 capacity, and we believe that that is sufficient enough for 30 persons to physical distance safely and to observe the event. Those 30 persons were representatives of the sponsors of the event, the person who invested in the event. And so that is what I do know what permission was granted for. And I did have a glimpse of the photo that in social media, and I don't think it even had 30 persons there, so it's probably less that actually attended. Permissions were also granted for support casts, persons who are assisting each artist. So there were other persons there. So those are the persons who were given permission to be there. So the whole perception of this elite stuff, I think is a little bit misplaced. Also, the show in itself was streamed on television at an affordable rate for ordinary citizens to view and partake in the show, internationally, locally, and otherwise. So I think in that context, I think that is fine. And it is for those reasons we gave support to the show. But I think one of the things that is missed and probably was not really captured is Grenada on display to the world. I didn't see any picture of that on social media. However, even there is also a perception that the Ministry of Culture is trying to restrain the job and do promote job. But if you notice in the performances of almost all the artists, job was the main feature on display. And so I think that in itself is what was really missed from the event. I think we, as the Ministry of Culture, we did call a promoter and did register our disappointment in terms of what was expected from those persons, from the sponsors. and he himself did profusely apologize for that and take responsibility for that happening. But that in itself, I don't think that should be used as a measure for not affording our persons, our artists, our promoters an opportunity for exposing themselves in that regard. So it's within that context, I believe that the event in itself was a successful one despite what was portrayed on social media. Just also, somebody from London sent me some WhatsApp messages showing fireworks. So fireworks was going off for that event. This event here in Grenada. In London, it was celebrated. So I think that there are a number of positives that derive from this event. And I said, what was seen in terms of that small group of people not social distancing, not wearing masks, I think that somewhat overshadowed a lot of positive things that came from that event. Well, even to go further, on Saturday morning, I was woke with a phone call asking if I was in the event not wearing masks. So I said, no, I was not at the event. So, you see, I think a lot of the things sometimes is a bit misplaced, and I just want to say more emphasis should be focused on the more critical aspect of what is being presented, and that is our artists, our local artists. I think that is what I really wanted to highlight. Thank you.
She also asked about for an update on museum.
Oh, the museum.
Let's sorry, before he goes on to the museum thing, my question, and that was a very comprehensive answer, thank you, Minister, was that given the fact that a lot of people came out on the streets in defiance based on the event having been allowed to go ahead, given our concerns about the spread of the coronavirus, and that if there's just one person in that mix who is infected, we actually would have a problem now. Do you regret, given that it appears that this event would have encouraged people to break the protocol in larger numbers, do you regret allowing it to go on? Yes, sir.
I don't think that
given the impact it had in getting people to come out, because people are upset.
Well, I don't think that the event in itself, and I don't think that people are defiant. I wouldn't say that the persons are defiant. I think that persons have a strong desire to celebrate Carnival, and that is what is really driving persons. Persons just want a little jump up or a fit or whatever the case may be. So I don't think it's any defiance. I don't think that is the issue. And I listened to some of the interviews of some of the persons, and it's not anything to do with any defiance or anything like that. I think it's more a strong desire for Carnival, revelry, and I think that is what is coming out. And I asked this question, and I think it's an honest and a fair question, is that if the show were to be cancelled, do we think that persons would not have come out on the street? And so I don't want to make this event, because you see, at the same time, the event itself was for Carnival revelers. The event itself was for the promotion of Jab Jab. And so by saying you're stopping an event for the same thing, so somebody's saying that they want to play Jab, so you're stopping Jab to play Jab. So I don't think that in itself really represents or indicate that the show itself had that kind of effect on our impact. And for me, the only thing that really transpired there is a display of culture.
So, Minister, you want to address the museum question?
The museum, the board, what I do know that the museum is functioning in a manner to make a number of transition initiatives become a reality. And one of those initiatives was the board. What I do know that is that the board is comprised of persons who were there previously and new members. And so that is the construct of the board, and that is done in a manner to bring harmony in terms of the transition. Based on the new legislation, the closure of the museum due to COVID-19 did delay those initiatives from going forward, a number of things. But I do know currently, in terms of the tenants, a number of the tenants didn't have any lease agreement or lease arrangement. And so what is being done now is that new lease arrangements are being prepared, of course, for tenants to sign so that a proper consideration can be given for persons using a particular space in the museum, and of course for the museum to receive monies for those rents. So that is what I do know, but I can say that that is an ongoing process, and we do think that it is going to realize in a successful manner. Thank you.
Is that it for you, Callistra? All right, so let me go back to Rena. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Les.
All right, so you have 2 final questions? Go right ahead.
Yes, I have 2 questions, knowing time is short. Minister, could you tell me the estimated time for the beginning of work for the Seamoon Cultural Center? I know you spoke about the drawings and tenure and stuff like that, but is there an estimated time as to how soon we'll actually see groundwork on actual construction on the building? Also, I know you're not the minister in that light, but in Cabinet yesterday, were there any mention as it relates, or would you give us any light on the impact of CDC's statement giving us a level 3, asking travelers not to come to Grenada unless it's essential, how that would impact our country now that we have opened up, expecting tourists to come in and stuff like that?
Thank you very much for those 2 important questions. The first question in regards to the time for construction for Seamoon, that will be difficult for me to ascertain right now, to give you a heads up on. However, works might be, the Ministry of Infrastructure might be the best place to do that. What I do advise, though, you continue to engage us, and as soon as we are close, we can give a more definitive time on that. But what I can tell you is that that is a priority project, and we are moving speedily to have it implemented as soon as possible. We did have some delays due to COVID-19, but we are hopeful, very hopeful, that we can get the tendering process completed on or before the end of this year. As relates to the CDC classification of Grenada, we have seen it. I have looked at it, I've read it, and in reading it, one of the things that I picked out, and in terms of the main justification for placing Grenada on that list, and it has to do with the capacity of Grenada's health sector if there were to be a major outbreak in Grenada. I think that was their reasoning in reading it, that if there were to be a major outbreak in Grenada, Grenada health sector does not have the capacity to handle a large outbreak as such. They're advising the citizens not to go here just in case something like that happened. But I also say on flip side of it that while that may be seen as a negative, we are well aware that we do not have any known community spread currently in Grenada. And our protocols are basically structured in such a way to trap positive persons at the border, and with the view of ensuring that Grenadians are safe. And we are very confident about the protocols that we have in place, and we are very proud of where we are today as a country. And so we are not disturbed by that, and we know that persons are looking and know that Grenada is doing everything in its power to ensure that visitors and the citizens remain safe. However, I also wish to add that the World Travel and Tourism Council, they have recently developed what you call a health safety travel stamp for countries. And Grenada is one of the countries who will have received that stamp of a safe country to travel to. So there is also positive reviews coming from other institutions who recognize that Grenada is a safe place to travel. So we are very happy about that. Thank you.
Where you're coming from there, but still, I don't think my question was answered.
Sure, go ahead.
The impact of that statement on our tourism sector, understanding that we highly depend on tourism, and we're just starting to, let's say, encourage persons to come in with the new launch of Just For You. How is that going to impact our tourism sector?
As I said, I don't think that it will impact it significantly in any way because knowledge, normally when advisories go out, all right, citizens, they would investigate themselves, we believe. And so in investigating, they would find that, look, while there is an advisory, they believe that that they can travel to one or two countries safely despite the advisory that is put out. And we are saying that, look, the World Travel and Tourism Council is saying that Grenada is a safe place to travel to. So we believe that that in itself will counter and help whatever negative impact that CDC advisory has will have. So we believe that we'll be okay. Despite that, generally throughout the world, tourism took a major blow for all countries, even the United States. They are impacted significantly by tourism as well. So it's not just Grenada alone.
That's it, Rena?
Thank you.
All right, great. Linda, do you have another question?
Yes, I do have, and thanks for taking. Minister, the Siemens Cultural Center, I took a quick look at budgets for the last 3 years, and it is mentioned there as a project to be done by government. You just a while ago said COVID had given some hold up to the project. For that project, can you tell us the projected cost of that project, who has done the design, and whether or not government has done an EIA for that project? And my other question is, in terms of the Ministry of Sports and Culture, last week Minister Joseph said that there will be some adjustments to the budget. Can you share with us whether or not these two ministries stand to lose any financing, and what projects or initiatives will be most affected?
Thank you very much for those two important questions. On the Simon Cultural Project, yes, not an EIA was not done. What we did was a geotechnical study to render the area safe in terms of whatever structural design that we need to do, we need to perform. The reason why we didn't do an EIA because a cultural center was operating there before, and it is not in an area that will hinder any, it's not a new site, it's the same site that we are building on, and it wouldn't hinder any environmental or any geological structures or any ecosystems in the area based on where it is operational. So in that context, we didn't do an EIA, but a geotechnical survey was done to ensure that whatever building that we're going to put there, the area, the structure, the foundation conforms to the geological structure that is found, findings in that area. So that is what was done. In terms of the design, the concept design was done by Barry's Engineering. It's a local engineering firm here, and so they are the ones charged with the responsibility for doing the concept design, and they are working on the drawings. I can't recall if there was another part to that question. However, as regard to the budget, yes, budget cuts are coming. They will happen, of course, for obvious reasons. We are receiving less revenue, but I would not want to speak too much on this in particular because I know that the Minister of Finance would want to address the nation on this some point in time going forward with any adjustments regarding our budget. So I cannot speak specifically to those figures, what areas have been cut right now, because the Ministry of Finance, they are actually crunching the numbers and making the necessary adjustments, and when that is done, it has to come back to Cabinet for approval. So it's there and then we would have an appreciation for what areas are going to be in fact affected, and as to what amount that the budget will be revised by in its totality. So those are very important questions, and you do get feedback on the budget aspect in particular going forward. Thank you very much for that.
Colleagues, anybody else?
I did have a query. Did ask about the cost for the Siemens
The
Cultural
cost.
Center.
Okay.
And
good.
Minister, you mentioned about the geotechnical study. Can you tell us what is the most significant finding and what is the suggestion given to work with it?
Okay. I cannot speak specifically to the findings. It's not my area of expertise, but I cannot speak specifically to the findings of the geotechnical study. But the area was deemed appropriate for construction of the cultural center based on the structural integrity of the soil in the area. However, as regards to the costing, the costings will be known when the drawings are complete and the scope of works are also finalized. The costing will be known. We do not have that final cost as yet. Thank you.
That's it, Linda? Linda,
Yeah, that's it
it?
for now.
Okay, great. Colleagues, anybody else before we wrap this up? You have 10 seconds.
Okay, you keep on bringing. Yeah, your TV in the background.
All right, colleagues, anybody else before we wrap this up? Nobody else? All right. So, Senator, we'll give you a minute to make any final words that you have to say.
Sure. I think I just want to see the Ministry of Culture. We are very proud and supportive of all our artists who are suffering right now. And the most challenging time for artists have not come as yet. And I say this in the sense that we were after Carnival is when our artists have to go out now overseas and for exposure and to help themselves and make money and whatsoever to move their business. No, they cannot do that this year. It cannot be done this year. And so we are very saddened by that. It's something that we have been discussing for quite some time among the senior management. We know that the impact is going to be felt. It's going to be a significant one. Also, we do not know whether or not we're going to have Carnival in the true sense, in its normal sense next year. We just don't know. We are very hopeful that we can get there, but we believe that the only how we can get there is that we as a country have to play our part to ensure that COVID-19 doesn't exist within our shores. And to do that, we have to act responsible. We have been doing an excellent job so far, and we have, I've said it over and over, the success is not just governments alone, but it's a national success. Each and every one of us, I could recall, going back to March, and the days, the shopping days, the bank days. We have gone through it, and we believe that we need to just continue to be vigilant. It's important. And I want to speak also in terms of government's policy. Government policies is not to prevent social activities. What we are saying, all we are saying is that if a social activity is planned or there is an intent of a social activity and you cannot satisfactorily maintain the protocols, then it shouldn't happen. Or it shouldn't happen within that construct that you intend for it to happen. But if you have a social activity that you want to have, and it can happen within the confines of the protocol, then albeit it should happen. So we are not about preventing any social activity, but it must be able to operate within the confines of the protocol in a safest manner. It's within that context that we allowed a virtual Mother's Day show to take place at Spiceland Mall sometime in May. Within that context, we allow all the other virtual events to take place, the Wasways and whoever, everybody who had the virtual content. Within that context, we believe that the virtual show on Friday could have happened successfully. 30 persons could fit safely within a 2,000 seating area. That is what we believe. And so it's within that context that permission was granted, that those things can happen once a person takes responsibility. We know that it's difficult for persons who to really adapt to the new normal. And so we understand, and hence that we're pushing significantly in terms of educating people, having that persuasion person, look, you need to do this. Even I myself have to remind myself ever so often. So I have hand sanitizers everywhere, one in the vehicle, one in the office, so we just have to try to see how we can and can improve. We are concerned about the large gathering or the jump up type thing. That we believe is very risky. But I want to make mention, and sometimes there is this notion that we are supporting JAB and so, but I want to make mention that I was very proud to see the display of the JAB in the St. Paul's area, and how they were actually portraying JAB. It wasn't just not jump up. They were actually portraying the JAB, and they were physical distancing and doing the necessary stuff. I think that we don't have a problem with that. But if you have 200-300 people jumping up close together, that lends itself for a number of uncertainties in a negative light. But we are very hopeful that all these activities, that have pockets of activities that are taking place, that have taken place yesterday and even some this morning, that we do not have any breakout from those. We are very hopeful, because the scare is that the young persons are the asymptomatic persons, the asymptomatic carriers, and we just don't know. And I think we need to be guided by this, that it's a novel coronavirus. It's new in every aspect. And so we call on persons, be vigilant, wear your mask, protect yourself. That is all we are saying. Just protect yourself, protect your family. Nobody, we do not want any unfortunate outcome in Grenada. I don't think any family deserve to go through that. While some of our families here would have gone through with losses in the United States, fortunately we haven't had any at home. We want to keep it that way. So we're asking persons to just be restrained, and let's work to see if we can get to Caracruz Carnival in February safely. Then we can take it from there, step by step. So with this, I just want to say thank you for being here. We ask the nation to continue to be safe, and thank you very much for doing what you can to keep Grenada safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator Cox, for your closing statements. Colleagues, we also thank you so much for participating as usual. And for those of you on the diaspora, and of course those of you viewing on Channel 22 and on the Facebook page, we do say thank you very much for staying with us. Everybody have a wonderful day today. Thank you.
Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
My enemies' walls are bound to crumble, and to the floor their spears will fall. I've been made and sealed with love, but time to battle, I'll find them all. I felt the whips and remember.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with the new National Party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
I used to be frightened. I'm not afraid no more. The Father blessed me with the heart of a lion and a warrior soul. So no weapon that form against I shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Tell them no retreat, no surrender. I shall fight till the end of days. I was born as a Makai warrior, and the Almighty God my blade. Fire burn all Satan carrier. Father loose all shackles and chain. This morning first thing as I wake up, King David turn Sam to the brain. Don't let your courage go down, keep it up. And if your heart rip up and stitch it up, don't let your faith them fall, pick it up. When my cup was empty, God fill it up. Don't take the devil contract, rip it up. And if your bad mind people to go meet it up, pass me the Congo drum and let me beat it up. God on my side, me no give it up. So no weapon that form against the end of days shall not prevail. And no man that rise against I, that war they shall never win. 'Cause I will conquer, oh I will conquer, yes I will conquer them. Come on, let's conquer, oh I will conquer, rise up and conquer them. Thank you, Father. I want to say thank you, Lord. You are everything, Father. Thank you. Father, you alone shall guide me. No man shall lead my path. In the wind I hear your quiet whispers, and you heal my broken heart. Even some of my friends turn enemies, and they pray for right to feel. And remember you gave us your only begotten son, but we gave him the wound of love. Send down your warriors with the hello. We carry down to the end of days. No matter how the devil try trick me, unto you my soul I will give.
Good morning, Grenada, Carriacou, and P.T. Martinique. You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada. A very special good morning to those of you joining us on 97.5 City Sound FM, 89.5 CRFM, 91.9 and 91.5 Real FM Radio, 92.9 Cicero Radio broadcasting from Hillsborough, Carriacou, and of course 94.9 We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. It is a beautiful, beautiful Tuesday morning. It's Tuesday, Mr. Bola?
It is, as far as I remember.
Yes, it's Tuesday. All right, in the Spice Isle, we're getting a little bit of rain, a little bit of showers here in the Spice Isle. And, of course, with me in studio, I have none other than Mr. Roland Bola. Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Good morning to you, Ms. Duncan. Good morning to our listeners, wherever they are, at home or abroad, and through whatever means, whether they're on the live or they're on one of the radio stations, several of those that broadcast Hard Talk Live. And to say to our listeners, my apologies for yesterday. I was absent, not because I was participating in Jab Jab. I did have several other activities that I had to give my attention to, pressing activities. For those who don't know, there are several other things that I do being here, accompanying Miss Duncan, being her co-host, as she mentions to you oftentimes, is only a part of the many other things that I have to do. So my apologies for that. My apologies for my absence. But I really do hope that whatever you were engaged in during yesterday was very fruitful for you, and that today, being Tuesday and another day that the Lord has made, we need to be happy and grateful that we have a chance to be in the land of the living.
Absolutely, Mr. Bola. And I'm assuming that you had a good weekend.
Oh, yes. My weekend was pretty colorful, productive.
Colorful.
Yes, colorful, because I'd seen a lot of things around me that I didn't expect to see. It was also very purposeful and productive. I did participate in a small grouping which had a very strategic engagement on Sunday afternoon. I think it was less than 20 people. We were together, so it was not one of the virtuals. Ideally, though, when I walked in, I was very early for the session, and I was shocked to see that the organizers had the chairs arranged in such a manner that they were all 6 feet apart. I mean, there was the social distancing, and every single person that attended that meeting was wearing a mask. So that was a good example, and it ended up being very fruitful, the discussions that was held. So.
All right. Now, Mr. Bola, we have a few things to talk about this morning. Of course, we're coming in on the heels of a post-cabinet briefing that was facilitated by Senator Nolan Cox, minister responsible for, let me see if I get it right, youth, sports, culture, and the arts.
Yes.
Right.
I think they normally say performing arts.
Performing arts.
That's what I think. I'm not sure if they just say arts or performing arts. I think it's performing arts.
And it was a very informative session, of course. And I know we want to delve into conversation because there are a few things that we do need to address this morning. But before we do anything, Mr. Bola, and I know you're going to talk about it after, and I don't care. Today is a very, very happy day for me, a very special day. And I'm only mentioning it because I know he's sitting there as he does every day, logged in and listening. Today is my son's birthday. So I have to say a very special, very happy 11th birthday to my no longer baby boy. You know, they grow up so fast. So I just want to extend that greeting to him. I know he's always blessed, and he's definitely going to have a happy day today because I will ensure of it. But I had to share this morning because I know he's logged in and he's listening. And if I don't, he can say, "Mommy, why come here and tell me happy birthday on the radio this morning?" So I have to tell him happy birthday.
Well, since you like happy birthday on the radio, I'd like to join your mom because I know who you are, and of course you know Mr. Bola. People don't get that the wrong way. I don't go to Miss Duncan's house. I've met her children outside of her home. I want to join with your mom to wish you a very, very, very happy birthday. I know that you're an active little boy, and I guess that your mother said you're no longer a baby. So you're growing into adulthood slowly. Take your time. Don't rush it. You'll get there.
Yeah.
But 11, you're coming. You're getting closer to me, boy, but, you know. It's all good. Really do enjoy your day. I wish that you'd have fun after and all the good things that you wish for.
All right. Now, Mr. Bola, with that being said, I was witness to some things this weekend over social media that had me a little unsettled, that I feel like we need to speak about first. And, of course, we're going to open the lines. I'll tell you why, because we don't have much time.
Yes.
And we want to give people an opportunity to share their views as well. And it had to do with the celebration that happened over the weekend. Some people call it a celebration of the jab. You know, some people call it an expression of their freedom. Some people had different views on what it was. In all of the celebration, one thing that I noticed, something that concerned me, was the amount of children that were involved. You know, and it really touched me to my core. It hurt my heart to see these things, because I could understand an adult saying, okay, well, we are accustomed playing with carnival every year. We go and we jump up and we jab, put on, we paint, and we oil and so on. And for most people, they know why they're doing it. They understand the culture and the history behind it. For some, for others, it's a means of celebrating, of a social activity, if you might call it that. And when I saw these children, instantly my mind went to two things: the risk that you have exposed your child to. Not just you. This is not just a parent exposing themselves because they feel like they have a freedom to express themselves, but also the risk involved for a child. Was it necessary to involve children in this weekend's activity? And that's just talking about the health and safety aspect of it. But I also want us to look at the at the social ill of it. The fact that you were asked explicitly not to gather. And there was some gatherings that I looked at and it wasn't so bad. Like, for example, I saw the jab in St. Paul's. It was a portrayal of the jab. It wasn't a mass. It wasn't a jump up and get on. It was a portrayal where they walked 6 feet apart. They were wearing their masks and so on. And they portrayed the jab. Now, for me, when I see that, I say, okay, these are some people who probably understand the history of it, who understand what the culture of it is, and they want to express it. But then when I see videos like I saw this morning where we have clusters of people jumping up in the streets, then I am concerned, And to me, Mr. Bola, it just, I don't know. To me, it makes me feel a certain type of way to see these kinds of things happening, to see the people behave in this kind of way and then involve children in it as well. For me as a mother and as a parent, it does not make me feel very good inside to see these kinds of things happening. And then it goes to show, well, what are we teaching our children? Are we saying that open defiance is a good thing? Are we saying that, well, the protocols are null and void? Are these the things that we are expressing when we do these kinds of things? What are your thoughts?
Well, you've said a lot. You've said quite a lot. And it worries me too. I did not have as much an opportunity as you to see a lot. Some photos I did get a chance to see, and some physically I did see as well, because in traversing yesterday in particular, because I had to do some movements based on some activities that I was engaged in. And I did see a couple of small bands, I'd say around St. Andrews area in the different villages, and with the children involvement. But I think the bigger issue for me, and the question that lingers on, is hearing people speak about jab is our culture. We want to express our culture. The bigger issue for me is whether or not in expressing your culture you was cognizant that there should be no carnival, and jab, in my opinion, is a part of carnival.
Yeah.
And secondly, whether the issue of coronavirus and its ability to transcend the cultures, races, beliefs, because the virus doesn't care too much about what your beliefs are, or whether what you're portraying is what you have been doing for years and culturally what you know. It doesn't care. Corona would attack you whether you're black or white, whether you're playing drab or you're playing shotney, whether you have carnival or not. So what we had was a lot of open defense. And I just want to pitch in here before I forget that I need to commend the police officers. And some people may have a different view, and that's all right, because we are all entitled to our viewpoints. That the police probably should have been more stringent. They probably should discipline more people. And that's the viewpoint that some people had. I thought, though, that the police acted with a lot of tolerance and patience. And that was for the better good for all of Grenada. Because I in my mind, foresee that if the police was a little bit more stringent, a little bit more authoritative, that we could have ended up with a battle, that there could have been further breakdown in law and order, and we could most likely have ended up with what can be termed a civil unrest. Yes, I think you have a caller. I'll continue with my thoughts after.
Okay, let's take this call. Good morning, caller.
Ms. Duncan, good morning. Mr. Buller, I apologize for breaking your trend of thought. But
you always do it, so apology accepted.
Oh, my goodness. So here is a question. If you have a loaf of bread and the bread is poison, does that mean that you can cut off a piece of the bread and eat it, and then you'll be fine? I think the answer is no.
Yes, I hope not.
No. I say that to say that the government was wrong, and the Ministry of Culture is supposed to take responsibility. If, in my mind, if you postpone Carnival, the Soca Monarch is also part of Carnival. In my mind, they had no right to take part of it and throw away part. If you say we're canceling Carnival for this year, and I'm not a supporter of Carnival, I don't play jab, I don't like it. But if you say you're canceling Carnival 2020, then all aspects of it should be canceled. I really don't see the logic in holding on to one part of the poison fruit and say, okay, well, that part is good. Because I really didn't understand Mr. Cox's thing this morning, too, and I'm being very, very, very honest. To me, he was like all over the place. If you say you don't want Carnival for this year, because of the pandemic, no Soca Monarch. I don't care if you say virtual Soca Monarch or what. It's Soca Monarch. In my mind, it should not have happened. So the government themselves or the ministry themselves inflicted self-wounds. And that is why that is what we see. And Ms. Duncan, I understand what you're speaking about. You're hard to see children involved in Carnival. Especially among this pandemic. However, in every carnival, you always have kids, and the people didn't care whether it is pandemic or not. They want to play their job, and they went ahead. And you see, and the government really gave them the go ahead in effect by promoting. And this is my opinion. This doesn't have to be true, but I believe that the government gave the people the go ahead to play their job, even if they went and passed the thing in Parliament, just by one act, by allowing some virtual Soca Monarch to go forward. This is my contribution for the day.
Well, thank you for that. And of course, I definitely won't make that an argument among us. There are those who are for, there are those who are against. We can wait in and out. Some people are strong about the fact, and in retrospect, I believe, as he put it, as he coined it, if it shouldn't happen, it shouldn't happen. But here's what I want to say just before you pitch in, Ms. Duncan. The fact that one person ate a slice of the poison bread, as you put it, did it then make it okay for everyone else to come and eat the bread?
Absolutely.
If we knew that the bread was poison and we saw one person eat, we should know that we should not follow through. So the question is not, I am not going to stand in defense of government. There can be deliberations on that. The government and the Minister of Culture seem to believe that there were good reasons and the rationale was correct. We could agree or disagree about that. It's not here or there. For me, maybe in the eyes of a lot of people, there are a lot of people that are saying, look, you shouldn't have. And let's say we agree, we agree to that. Now, the second question is, because the government misstep or did something wrong or did not or drop the ball someplace, was it then correct for everyone to get up and say, it is our time to do it now? I still think that we should all think for ourselves. There's a pandemic out. The warning is out. We're seeing what is happening all around us. And so we should have allowed better judgment to be our guide. So, my friend, don't get me wrong. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm saying the analysis could be done. Government may soon recognize, if they have not yet, that, in hindsight, we probably should not have allowed anything, because now people can turn around and point the fingers at us and we have to take the blame. Yeah. That's what government can do. But it did not make it correct for others to say, if the priest could play, who is me? So the priest walking down here, you have to walk down behind him? Absolutely not. That's my point.
And that's where the conversation of personal responsibility must come in, Mr. Bola, because as you rightfully said, if one person eat the bread and the bread poison, why does it make it okay for everybody else to eat the bread? It's all about personal responsibility. We need to get off this issue of blaming other people for our actions and start understanding that the choices we make are ours. We are the ones that make these choices. Nobody held a gun to anybody's head and said, okay, well, if you don't do this, this is going to happen. Or if you do this, this is going to happen. In the same way that we stood up and said, no, we do not agree with this section of the bill or that section of the bill, right? We could, in the same breath, stand up and say, no, I do not agree that we should be playing carnival. I do not agree that we should jump Juve. It's all about personal responsibility. You see, whenever we get in the business, Mr. Bola, of finding blame in other people and saying that, this person is responsible, because if we're talking about responsibility, then there were numerous virtual activities that took place, apart from this one activity that everybody is so riled up about. There were a lot of other activities. There's upstage TV that happens every single Saturday, where local artists, whether it's reggae or carnival, artists or soca artists and I see the phones ringing, and we'll get to that as soon as I make this point, Mr. Bola. We have had over the period radio stations playing the carnival music and buses, bringing that music across. So if we have to lay blame, then we'll have to lay blame to everybody. You can't pick and choose who you want to blame for certain things. If you are saying that it should not happen, then everyone that has had an activity between that time should be held accountable, and not just this one activity. But also, Mr. Bola, we have to look at it from the point of view, and this is how I saw it. I saw this as an opportunity where an independent private entity, and for some people they believe that this is a collaboration between government and whoever else, an independent private individual decided that he was going to host an activity which in and of itself provided a source of employment for individuals. And I'll tell you how that goes. We had dancers, we had stylists, we had hairdressers, we had, I guess, the people who built the props, people who did production of the event. You had the soca artists who by now would have been getting an income based on whatever carnival activities we normally would have, And when I look at all of these different attributes and parts of this one event, how can I be upset? And I mean, I don't blame anybody else if they feel like, they upset, they find this shouldn't happen and so on. But when I look at the amount of people who benefited as a result of just this one event, I can't be mad at that.
Well, I am not mad also, but I don't agree with you.
Tell me why.
You made good points. There's a lot of monies probably past hands, which is important at this time because people do need it. But one person from that activity may have been positive.
Right.
Could have been positive. Could have shared it. And that's that community spread. Now, here's what. All of those wonderful points that you're making now, and maybe the minister can make or the government, is after the fact. If we had all these positives that we could bring forward, should have been done long before the show was held. The Grenadian population had to understand the education process had to start way before the event was held. So people would understand, hey, this is going virtual. There's a very slim possibility of contraction. The demands are A, B, C, D, E. People must be physically distanced. Those who are participating, they must follow the protocols by wearing the mask, X, Y, Z. And then you say, we are allowing it as a government because here are the other positives that can come from it. Now, you cannot bring these things after the fact. It's okay to point them out now. But people already had formulated an impression in their mind that, it's good for the goose, but not for the gander. These people can participate and get whatever is meant, the benefits. But we can't because we are seen as small people. We are not as popular as they are. So my point is, if we're doing it, we have to understand that government is for the entire nation.
Yeah.
Not this group or that group. It's for everybody. And so if government is taking a decision, which they have the right to do, understanding the present situation, all of the factors
must be explained. Yeah.
People should have gotten an opportunity to say, well, we see the positives here, but what about X? Or what about Y? Y can't B, occur as well. And maybe with this dialogue, long before the event, others may have been able to say, well, all right, now we get a clearer understanding. Maybe we can fashion what we want to do in a manner that it fits in with the protocols, and we can draw some positives from it. So the people who are upset, they have a right to be. I don't blame them. What I blame them for is that because Tom did it,
it doesn't
make it okay. Two wrongs does not make it right.
Absolutely.
Right? If it was wrong, it's wrong. We say it's wrong, but we don't do a wrong to correct the wrong that was done before. So we have to be more sensitive as a people.
And you are right, Mr. Bowler, because we have said here numerous times that it is very, very important that government speak, and not after the fact. More education is needed. However, it is still my reservation when it comes to the education process that you put as much information out there as possible. Who wants to receive it will receive it. However, that's not an excuse to not put it out there.
Exactly so.
But to me, Mr. Bowler, that's how I see it. I saw this as an opportunity for people to gain an income. And yes, you're right that more information should have been provided before all of this happened. But it still doesn't give people the right to say, well, if that happened, then we go do this too. Because at the end of the day, COVID doesn't look at, well, look, this person had it and that person, because you have to look at the differences in what happened. Here you have a whole bundle of people jumping up together, children as well as adults, all commingling, and you just don't know what the outcome might be. So now everybody is holding their breath for the next 14 days in hope that something doesn't happen. And I mean, we all hope that something doesn't happen. There are a lot of people out there, myself included, who enjoy their little juve and enjoy their little mass and would have loved the opportunity to do so. But then when I take a moment and I look back at what I'm leaving at home and what I'm coming back home to, you know, my children, my mother, plus the people here at work that I interact with, I have to make the best possible decision that affects me and them as well. We have a caller on the line. Good morning. Hello?
Hello, good morning, Ms. Duncan.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Bolo.
Good morning.
Good morning, how is it, sir? How things?
Very well for today.
Yeah, Mr. Bolo, I want to agree with you, sir. When it comes to the education of our people, I think we are lacking in many areas. And sometimes the information we get is not the correct type of information. And I want to acknowledge here as what has happened over the weekend. As a former cricketer, playing in cricket in all the villages and so forth, and we have a situation, you got two umpires, but my team has an umpire, your team has an umpire.
Mm-hmm.
My umpire give a wrong decision,
Yes.
and what they will say in local terms, by thief out the man.
Yes.
The wicket. The man batting good,
Yes.
thief him out.
Mm-hmm.
The next umpire now, waiting on our occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever the ball hit you when you are batting, you're out.
You're out too, yes.
Guy taking back the wicket from him.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the analogy.
Yes, you're correct. Two wrongs don't make it right. Once it's wrong, it's wrong.
When it's wrong, it's wrong.
Yes.
So you have not taken the corrective situation, right? No, and again, I'm saying, I know my voice crying in the wilderness, that we are wrongly thought about slavery, emancipation, when it comes to the relationship and how Africans had to fight for the liberation, you know. So let's draw a parallel, Mr. Bola. You own a vehicle. Somebody wants to buy that vehicle from you. They must compensate you for the vehicle. They must pay you so that they could become the owner. Let us see what happened here. During the emancipation period, which started as early as 1807, 1820, 1834, 1838, come down to conclude at 1838. What has happened there? That the owners of us, the slaves, they were granted 20 million pounds to get rid of their property. The African man who slaved on the plantation for 300 years did not get 1 cent. What did we fight for? Who did we fight against? Who fought for us? You see, and we have to understand the point that slavery was not abolished for humanitarianism. It was merely because of the economic strain that was now on the plantation owners that it was not profitable for them to keep us. So they were paid to set us free by the British government. And this fight, and people talk about rights and rights and rights. Now, my thing is this. The foundation of human rights and liberty was as early as 1215 in what we call the Magna Carta. That you're talking about the rights of freedom and liberties that was enshrined in the British Parliament as early as 1215 because the king was King George Jura Executioner. So they brought that Bill of Liberty, Civil Rights and Liberty, to ensure that and that's why we have it today. You go to the court, and if you're a defense attorney, you will hear they say to the jury, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, that you must take into consideration that my client is innocent until proven guilty. And that's the foundation of rights and liberty. So I think that, as you say that, education we must continue to educate our people, and other people, we have to determine between ourselves too. Let's forget about those basics. What is right? What is the circumstances that we are facing now? Is it in my best interest to play carnival? Is it safe? Do I have a grandmother at home? I am 20 years, I'm 18 years, but my mother is living with her mother. We are living with our grandmother. What would be the effect if I am asymptomatic and I should go into this activity and then carry this thing back home? What happened to my family? So we all must take responsibility for our action. Now is not normal time. And I don't think for 1 minute that the government want to take away the rights of citizens. I'm not supporting that. But what I have seen is that some people encourage. What this the jab thing is a protest, eh?
Yes.
It is a protest. And I want to make one last quotation as I close. There was a wayward prince in England at one time, and he went to he did a lot of illegal stuff, and he encouraged his friends because he was prince to do a lot of silly things. He ended up in court. And when the judge was passing the decision, he said to the judge, "I'm a prince." And then the judge replied, "Prince and no prince." But in scolding, in passing the sentence, what remains with me is that the judge said, "Young man, one day you would be king. And how do you expect your subject to obey you if you yourself does not obey the king's law?" Now, let me repeat. Young man, one day you would be king. How do you expect your subject to obey you if you yourself does not obey the king's law? Now, I'm saying this to say, if there is any person or persons in opposition of this government who is vying for office, remember, if you disobey the laws of the land now, when you become in office, what would you expect? Thank you, Mr. Bola. Have a good day.
Word to the wise, Mr. Brave Boy, as though it's been said, what goes around comes around. And just last week we mentioned that. In fact, I mentioned that if there are those who are hiding behind the activities now with the hope that they're going to bring down this government through all of these things to get into office, remember, whatever you plant, you shall reap. So I think it's a very good word. I think Mr. Brevoy, as per usual, in a historical context, always put things into place. And so we say, let us continue to educate and teach our people. Let us bring the issues to them, especially those that we believe as a government may have the opportunity to become controversial. We need to have the dialogue. We need to make things happen.
Well, Mr. Bola, you're absolutely right. And I mean, Mr. Brave Boy always comes in at the best times. We can take one more call, but that caller will have to limit to 30 seconds because we are almost over our time. So we'll take this last call. Hello, caller. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Hello?
Yes,
Hi,
good morning.
Yeah, morning, Mr. Bola and Ms. Duncan. I support the first caller this morning that called into the program. You see, an act was passed, right, for the cancellation of Carnival for this year. And I don't believe that we should have, those things that would have sort of, affected, that would have affected
stimulate people to want
the effectiveness of a law or an act that was passed. And the fact that we would have granted permission, to other persons or other organizations to conduct other activities, like, for example, the Virtual Soca Monarch, for example. Because I know long before that people were planning to defy the act, the law, and so on. But at the same time, I don't think we should lend to they doing that, right? If Carnival was cancelled, and Carnival wasn't just cancelled because we feel like cancelling Carnival. There was good reason.
There was good reason for it.
For the cancellation of Carnival.
Yes.
And therefore, sometimes you have to be tough. You have to make tough, maybe unpopular decisions, but in the best interest of the country.
Yes.
Because months ago, I've heard the NDC caretaker for St. Patrick's West on another program, I call him program To The Point, and he was alleging that some government ministers were not allowing the police to do their job fairly. in situations where they were clustering and people were not maintaining the physical distance and wearing face covering, that when the police try to intervene, that certain government ministers intervene and say, that's my boys or whatever, and and he's up on them and that kind of thing. Sometimes we have to remove any chance of, because people are going to be there ready just to take advantage of certain situations. So when I heard him say that, I question whether any minister of government in his right sense, in his good judgment, would prevent the police from doing his job, But lately, in the last sitting of the Senate, I heard the Labour Senator, Senator Andrew Lewis, was again talking. He made he alluded to almost exactly what the caretaker for St. Patrick's West said a couple months ago. So
sorry, no caller, but you had to wind up right about nowhere because we're really out of time.
It was unfortunate that we allowed the other
yes,
activities
very much so.
And I'm seeing this irresponsible behavior, this sort of hopeless and purposeless behavior of these people, of what is happening on. It annoys me. It annoys me, right?
Here's what I will tell you. Put your thoughts together because I believe that discussion will continue. We would have to talk about it again. It's not over. I mean, the events are over, but we have to look towards the future and determine how best we deal with situations like that. Thank you. Put your thoughts together. You'll get an opportunity again. We're really out of time, and I want to thank those who have been listening to us. Now we normally close off at 11:45 because we do the news and the national report and other things. We take it before it was done, before 10 o'clock, but now we do it at 11:45. So I want to say that people keep safe. I think today is a much cooler day than yesterday in terms of the activities. I did not see any jab or jab-like activities on my way down from St. Andrews to St. George. I didn't see. Maybe there is. I'm not saying there wasn't. But whatever it is, I think we are getting into a calmer stage now. Let's become civil again. Let's hope that nothing would happen as a result of what we have seen. People are going to be safe and that we can ride over what we are seeing now and get to a better place. Thank you and be safe and God bless you.
All right, and as we close, guys, I want to let you know before our time winds out that tomorrow there will be a sitting of the lower house that would be where our representatives sit. I'm not 100% certain as to what the proceedings will be about tomorrow, but I do advise that you tune in at 9 o'clock and we will be carrying it here live as well. Guys, in whatever you say and whatever you do, be safe. Be secure. As we say here every day, we always want to be talking with you. We don't ever want to be talking about you. But most importantly, we advise and we always advocate for making the right choices. Do enjoy the remainder of your day and stay tuned for the National Report. Advise and we always advocate for making the right choices.
Two biggest days on the Carnival calendar on non-bank holidays this year as
Brought to you by the Ministry of Health.
Welcome back. The Grenada Tourism Authority says its recently launched Paradise at Home campaign is picking up momentum, with most stakeholders getting on board. In June, the GTA introduced an opportunity for locals to take advantage of various deals at different cottages, hotels, guest houses through the Paradise at Home campaign, which seeks to promote local tourism throughout Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Communications Officer Ria Murray says the feedback from members of the public and the business community is encouraging.
We did launch our local tourism campaign, Paradise at Home, and the message was basically, we live in paradise, why not explore it? And then we got some fantastic offers from local stakeholders. We must say, in terms of the offers, that more and more of our stakeholders are coming on board. We started off with accommodation, the accommodation sector, and now tour operators want to jump on board and offer their deals to locals as well. And when we look at our postings on social media with Paradise at Home, we've been getting calls, we've been getting comments as to where can they find the information with the deals, and where can they go to enjoy their country. So the feedback has been very positive from the stakeholder side of things, and then from the local side of things. So we just encourage everyone to continue to be tourists in their own destination. We live in paradise. We need to enjoy it and just treat themselves and their families to some of the deals being offered by our local stakeholders.
For more information on the local campaign, visit the official website of the Grenada Tourism Authority, www.puregrenada.com. Finally, in the news, the Ministry of Education is inviting students from primary and secondary schools in St. George to participate in the Grenada Chess Federation's inaugural Learn to Play Chess Summer Camp 2020 from Monday, August 17th to Friday, August 21st at the Grenada Boys Secondary School Auditorium in Tantine, St. George. We get more in this Chrisanne Mitchell report.
In an effort to provide a creative, fun learning activity for primary and secondary school students, GCF will host an annual Learn to Play Chess Summer Camp. This free pilot camp is being launched in the parish of St. George and will thereafter be rolled out in the other parishes. Participants in the Learn to Play Chess Summer Camp are expected to benefit significantly. Playing chess offers intellectual, social, and academic improvement. The one-week camp will follow all protocols regarding social distancing and hygiene outlines for schools. Interested persons are asked to contact Mr. Ruggles Ferguson or Mrs. Danielle Sylvester at the Siboney Chambers on telephone number 440-2707 for registration. The Grenada Chess Federation is a recently formed non-profit organization dedicated to the promotion of chess in Grenada, Carriacou, and
two biggest days. Two biggest days on the carnival calendar are none